Saludos.
Saludos, compañero, amigo.
¿Cómo estás, Daniel? ¿Cómo te va?
Muy bien, muy bien. ¿Y tú cómo estás?
Muy bien also. So, sorry, this episode will be in English. And first of all, hello everyone, and remember the 5th of November. That's I also congratulate to the day of those who love V for Vendetta. It's kind of fun day for V for Vendetta fans. So, how are you, Daniel? If someone
All good.
doesn't know Spanish.
No, all good here. Well, as I was telling you before, I was a little bit nervous because 3 days ago I got my wisdom teeth removed here. So it's still a little bit swollen, but it's good that it is not hurting anymore. So I am able to speak.
So, all right. So, how was your this week? Like, it was kind of like busy, or you focus on more relaxed? How was it?
No, I think that it was a relaxed week. But very painful after getting this wisdom teeth extracted. But apart from, other than that, all good.
All right, perfect. So today, like on the weekly SEO, we will dive into like little more technical depth. And in this episode, like Daniel will present the technical details such as indexing, crawling, and how we can use Python for SEO. Like, of course, before we start, let's find out who Daniel is, and you can share your screen, Daniel.
Yeah, let me share my screen. All right. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Oh, all right, thank you. Thank you for confirming. So yeah, basically, let's speak a little bit about myself. So while I am Daniel, I am based in Barcelona, but I live for 2 years and a half in Malta, and I have around 5 years of experience in SEO, mainly technical SEO. And well, I am a Pythonista since 2018, when I did an introductory course on Python, and I learned the foundations of this programming language that I think that is very useful, at least for SEO.
Yeah, actually, I have a question here, Daniel. Like, do you want to tell about like SEO industry, like in Spain? Like, frankly, like one of the markets I care about most is Spain. And do you think SEO has like high share in investing in digital marketing? Like, how is the SEO industry in Spain?
Well, I think that when it comes to the SEO industry in Spain, we're still far maybe from the UK or the USA, in the sense that when it comes to investment, there is not so much investment, or as much investment as in these countries. And I think that something that is interesting about the SEO industry in Spain is that I think that we believe more in black hat SEO. So in comparison with the UK or the USA, I think that they are going in a different direction. Now something that is very popular in these countries is PR actions, whereas here in Spain, it's more about, buying links, forums, etc. It is not like this in all the for all the sectors, let's say, but I think that we are a little bit more into black hat than the rest of the countries.
Yeah, like if you compare all markets to the like with USA, USA is a really huge market for SEO and also for another digital marketing areas.
Exactly. And I think that they are a little bit ahead in that sense, because they already know of how much valuable SEO and digital marketing in general is for the businesses. Here, I think that we are a little bit too skeptical.
Yeah.
But I think that little by little we are making a lot of progress in that sense. So
yeah, like every market that starts with like SEO, then they are like, how can I say, like they can notice that SEO is really important, and they are changing their idea, etc., etc.
Exactly, it's all about education and being able to link SEO or digital marketing actions to results. Once you are able to demonstrate how valuable SEO and digital marketing is, then it's when they are willing to invest much more.
Yeah.
All right. So, well, let's speak a little bit more about some fun facts. So I have a sausage dog called Roscoe. I think that it's adorable. I usually get started with I present Roscoe in my presentations because I think that he is adorable and I am very proud of him. I am addicted to sushi. I think that I would be able to eat sushi every day, but yeah, that would be too much maybe. And I needed to quit PlayStation 4. I used to play a lot PlayStation, mainly Rocket League, but at some point I needed to quit because, well, I was going crazy, breaking controllers, even once I broke the TV. So I thought that it was not healthy and I needed to quit it. And now I am in detox mode.
Like I have this bad moment also, you know, like sometimes I'm also addicted to FIFA. Do you play FIFA?
Yeah, well, I used to play, not anymore.
Like when someone beat me in the online, I'm getting angry and really sometimes I'm getting like broke this controller also.
It's very frustrating when you shoot 1,000 times and you are not able to score, and then your opponent comes only once and he's able to score with one shot. Is like, come on.
Exactly.
This is when you go mad.
So also like I'm not very good like with the Far Eastern cuisine, but I love sushi too because sushi is really incredible food for me. But as I said, like I'm not very good with the Far Eastern cuisine, but sushi is perfect.
Oh, I think so, and it's not very complicated. Well, this is the team of BoostROAS.
Yeah, BoostROAS agency team, and like we have given ourselves a name among ourselves, like is SEO Painkillers. We are calling ourselves, and here are the key members of this Painkillers team. And Roman Adamita is an SEO geek who manages our SEO department, and Bushra is a content superhero, is a content queen. And I'm Adam. I just completed my first year in BoostROAS, and I'm a member of this team that focuses more on technical part of SEO and nurtures brands in this way. And Yunus is another hero of ours who focuses on local SEO more. And yeah, like that's our SEO team, and we can keep going.
All right, it's a great team. And well, I would like to take advantage of this moment to thank you, Adam, for inviting me to give this presentation, and of course, all the team of BoostROAS.
Thank you for accepting also, Daniel.
Yeah. So, but well, getting down to business. So this is a little bit the agenda for today. So we will get started a little bit with my experience with Python and how to get started with it. Then we will go over some technical SEO recommendations for crawling and indexing. We'll speak about the APIs that we can use. And we will also go into Google guidelines and crawl budget, because first, before getting started with the Python projects that you can run to improve your crawling and indexing, I think that it's important to understand the concepts and to have the foundations very clear.
Yeah, like in fact, with Python, like we can simply achieve the feature of many tools like they give us. Like sometimes, you know, like the free tool question asked a lot in the SEO community. And I think like one of the most important topics of Python offers us, like this is the one of them. Do you think in this way also, like Python is giving us like it's kind of free tool for SEO community?
Exactly, I totally agree with you. Agree with you. And I think that you have described Python in the best way. At the end of the day, Python is a tool or a resource that it's at our disposal. Doesn't mean that we cannot do things in a different way, but I think that it's a very interesting tool. And we will go over some of the projects that we can run with Python, and then I think that you will be able to understand the value of being able to code with Python when it comes to SEO. But I would also like to highlight that one of the most interesting things of Python is the ability to be able to use APIs. So yeah, we will speak later about some specific APIs for crawling and indexing. But the number of APIs that you can make use of with Python is huge, and it will enable you to get data or to submit data in a bulk mode that you would not be able to do manually.
Yeah, of course. So if someone else has a question, you can use the chat button here. So you can ask the question to Daniel. So you can go ahead, Daniel.
Feel free to interrupt and ask the questions if someone has some questions. We'll be happy to answer. So some initial thoughts about Python. So here I wanted to put together some of the usual questions that I am asked about Python. So the first one is, why did you want to learn Python? And first of all, I think that I wanted to learn Python because maybe I am a little bit lazy. So I saw the value in being able to automating some of the processes that I was doing manually and were very painful if were done manually. And on the other hand, I think that automation is very important because when you set the autopilot, when you are doing something manually and you set the autopilot, you tend to make mistakes. When you automate the things, most of the times you are very, very, very unlikely to make mistakes because everything is automated. What is the most difficult part of learning Python? I think that with Python and with any other coding language, the most difficult part is understanding the logic. Once you are able to understand the logic, I think that you are able to even learn other languages in a easier way, but you need to understand the logic of the language. Once you learn the logic and you want to learn any other language, the only thing that changes most of the times is the syntaxes. Any piece of advice for those who have just started programming with Python? I think that one piece of advice is learning or have very clear the foundations. Once you have understood the foundations, I think that you are in a good moment to try to scale it up and to take it to the next level. And also something that I would recommend is to not give up. Even if you're stuck with a piece of code, don't give up. There is a lot of information on the internet. You can resort to Google or to Stack Overflow, and Python has a very big community. It is very likely that someone else has asked the question that you are asking yourself before, and it has already been answered. And what Python libraries would you recommend to learn and use? So basically, I would recommend to learn Pandas, which is a library that will enable you to import, export, and manipulate data in a very structured way. So it's something that it's very, very popular in Python and very, very used. And also Request, which will enable you to make HTTP requests in order to be able to use APIs, for instance, or also to scrape websites. Well, let's go into the search engine APIs. Basically, let's try to understand what an API is and what this acronym stands for. So basically, an API is an application programming interface, which is a software intermediary that allows two applications to talk to each other. And for instance, an API will enable you to speak to SEMrush. So basically, it connects your browser or your local machine to a tool like SEMrush or the search engine APIs that we are going to see later on. And in many cases, they allow us to request and or submit information in a bulk mode. I think that this is super important because you are able to get lots of information and submit lots of information in a bulk mode. Whereas if you would like to do it manually or you would try to do it manually, it would take so long. So it's a way to speed up processes. And Google and Bing and Yandex seem to have very different approaches about what use to give to their APIs. This is something that we are going to see into detail as well later on, but apparently Bing and Yandex are trying to use more push requests in the sense that we, as a user or webmaster, would be able to request to Bing and Yandex which are the URLs that we would like to index or crawl, whereas Google doesn't give these sort of facilities. If you want to index a URL, of course, you can do it from Google Search Console, but only one by one. You don't have the option of doing it in a bulk mode.
So as you know,
yeah.
like as we are like marketers, we need more and more data from another tools, etc., etc. And sometimes we are using tools, like a lot of tools, to collect these data. But in the backend of the site of these tools, actually they are connecting like with lots of APIs together. I think like the APIs is really key of our life in this job, because marketers need more data, and actually like tools are collecting these data with APIs also.
Exactly. And I think that what our stakeholders would expect from us is to make informed and data-driven decisions, right? So using APIs is something that is very useful in order to be able to come up with these data-driven decisions. I think that we are also asked to have a data-driven approach in most of the cases, which makes sense. But of course, we need to be quite familiar with this API so that we can process and we can extract this data as easy as possible and as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, when it comes to search engine APIs, so first of all, we have Google Indexing API, which is only supposed to be used in two cases. If you have or if you own a job posting site with structured data, or a broadcast event site, which have video objects embedded on them. Otherwise, you are not supposed to use it, although you can still use it, but most of the time, the requests that you would make are going to be neglected by the API, unfortunately. You can still maybe improve a little bit your crawling rates, but when it comes to indexing URLs, most of the time is not something that is going to work for you if you don't have any of these type of sites. Alternatively, you can use the Google Search Console API for uploading, deleting, and requesting information from the sitemaps. So basically, if you would like Google to crawl some URLs, you can create a sitemap with these URLs, and you can upload the sitemap by using the Google Search Console API. And in case the sitemap is already created and uploaded on Google Search Console, you can also use the ping functionality, which is very easy to be used because you only need to type on your browser this endpoint, google.com ping, question mark sitemap, and then here you would need to introduce the sitemap that you would like Google to crawl. But anyway, in case you have a job posting site, or you have a broadcast event site, or maybe if you are still curious and you would like to use Google Indexing API, basically you need to understand that the information needs to be sent by using HTTP headers. And here we have the definition of what an HTTP header is, if you are not familiar with this concept, which is basically the way servers and clients can communicate in both directions. So here below, we have a piece of code that we would need to send to Google Indexing API in case that we would like to index a page. So basically, this piece of code has two, let's say, parameters. One of them is the URL, which is careers.google.com, and the other one is the type, which is URL updated. I'm not speaking off the top of my head, but if, for instance, instead of indexing the URL, you would like to de-index it, instead of using type URL updated, you would need to use deleted. And here, now we are going to speak about the Bing Indexing API. So basically, as I said, they have very different approaches. And actually, Bing, I think that it was very recently, maybe 2 weeks ago, released the feature IndexNow. So basically, this feature, until then, you were still able to use the API and submit and ask for indexation of many URLs in bulk mode. but it was not using this exact IndexNow, which makes it work in a slightly different way. So on the one hand, what you need to do is downloading the UTF-8 key, and you need to create a txt file under your root directory with the txt key. So basically, once you have created this txt page under the directory, you will be able to verify your site, and you will be able to start using the IndexNow feature. And to request the indexation of an URL by using the IndexNow, it's very easy. So you only need to call the endpoint bing.com IndexNow, and here as a parameter, you need to introduce your URL and also your key. And this is what I mentioned before, maybe already a couple of times, the approach between Google and Bing and Yandex in this case. When it comes to indexing, it's very different because, as a matter of fact, when it comes to Bing, we have a quota of 10,000 URLs a day versus 200 from the Google Indexing API. So basically, you can only request the indexation of 200 URLs with Google, but when it comes to Bing, you can even ask for 10,000 URLs. And it's a little bit different because they are betting more on the push side. So as a webmaster, I am able to push and to request the indexing of those URLs that I really think that are valuable. And in fact, you don't really need to use the API if you want to submit for indexation lots of URLs on Bing, because you can also use Bing Webmasters tool and the submit URL feature, so that you are able to introduce up to 10,000 URLs in different rows, and Bing will try to index them. So
yeah, actually, as SEOs, like we are focusing on more Google, but there's also Bing side, and in some market, Bing is really important part, like important search engine, and that's also like kind of new like update, and actually like is adding the slide. It's you are updating the people also, because it's really Bing is a kind of important search engine, and we need to optimize it also for the technical and content side together.
Exactly. And when it comes to Bing Webmaster Tools, it is releasing lots of functionalities that are very useful for SEO. So if you have not created your Bing Webmaster account, I would recommend you to create it because it's very easy in addition. So basically, you can export the setup that you have on Google Search Console to Bing Webmaster tool. So it just takes a couple of seconds to create your Bing Webmaster account with all the properties that you have on Google Search Console. So, all right, now that we have covered everything related to the APIs, let's try to understand a little bit more what is crawl budget, so that we can get started with the Python projects. And I would like to use this slide to demystify a little bit the crawl budget concept, because I think that, or I feel that there is quite a lot of noise around crawl budget, lots of legends and stories, but I would like to make it clear before getting started with the Python projects. First of all, when we are speaking about crawl budget, we need to understand the concept of crawl rate limit, which limits the maximum fetching rate for a given site. So basically, a given site will always have a crawl rate limit, which will depend basically on two things. One of them is the crawl health, which is basically the way your site is giving response to all the requests that the search engine is making. So if a search engine is making lots of requests and your site is struggling to give response to this request, it will crawl less URL. Whereas if your site is able to give response very fast to all the requests that it's making, it will able to crawl many more URLs. On the other side, there is also the limit that you can set on Google Search Console. On Google Search Console, you can set a limit so that Googlebot will crawl your site in a more or less aggressive way. It doesn't imply that if, for instance, you increase the limit, it will crawl more URLs, or if you decrease the limit, it will crawl less URLs, but at least you will give the option to Googlebot to be a little bit more aggressive. And even if, for instance, it feels that your site is not being able to give response to the requests. Also, something that I think that it's important to mention is that if a site has fewer than a few thousand URLs, most of the time it will be crawled efficiently. So basically, if your site is small, let's say, you don't really have to worry so much about crawl budget, but which doesn't mean that, for instance, if you run an initiative to improve crawl budget, like, well, we will see it later, but duplicate content is something that worsens your crawl budget. It can still be something interesting to be done for your site, even if it's smaller, but not maybe for crawl budget purposes, but for cannibalization or other reasons. And Google uses hundreds of signals to rank the results, and while crawling is necessary for getting results, it's not a ranking signal. So crawl budget is not a ranking signal, but basically, of course, if you want a URL to rank for a keyword, first of all, Google will need to crawl it and index it. So for the reason, it's important to have a good and optimized crawling and indexing of your site. And here we can see some of the crawl budget factors that are stated on Google guidelines. So faceted navigation and session identifiers, infinite spaces, soft error pages, hack pages, low quality and spam content, and on-site duplicate content. And we can speak about some examples. So for instance, when it comes to faceted navigation, mainly we're speaking about e-commerce filters. Sometimes in the e-commerce filters, there are many parameterized URLs that are making the site very, very big and are not adding any value. We're also speaking about, when it comes, for instance, to infinite spaces, we're speaking about infinite paginations. So for instance, if you have a calendar in your site, Googlebot would be able to keep on crawling the months of your calendar almost forever. So basically, that's something that you need to be careful with, these infinite paginations that would make Googlebot to keep iterating in a sort of loop. Automatic generated pages with thin or duplicate content. So basically, duplicate content, we all know that it's something that needs to be addressed, and also thin content. And it's something that will make your crawl budget worsen. And response code errors. So for instance, 404 response code pages, 404 response code pages that are not throwing actually a 404 response code. So that's something that needs to be optimized and needs to be tackled in order to improve your crawl budget. And finally, when Google states or Google indicates all the crawl budget factors, it doesn't say anything about page speed, but actually in another section, it states that making a site faster improves the user's experience while also increasing crawl rate. So at the end of the day, it's telling you, okay, if your site is faster, if it gives response to my requests very fast, I will also be able to crawl many more URLs. So in short, when we speak about crawl budget optimization, it's all about lower response times and also removing those pages that are not valuable.
Yeah, I want to add something here. Like, as you know, we highlight the server response time event, like mostly for the first contentful paint metric, but it actually has a quite impact on the crawl budget also.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And time to first byte.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So, yeah. Well, it's also even stated on Google guidelines, as we have seen before. it improves the user experience. So that's something that it's also very important, because when we speak about crawl budget and page speed, we are not only speaking about Google bots, we're also speaking about real users that land in our website that otherwise they would tend to bounce back if the page speed is low, or of course we need to give our best to give the best user experience as possible. All right, so when it comes to crawl budget, these are the main and the best tools to assess it. So we have Screaming Frog, Sidebar, Google Search Console, Python, and page speed. And now we are going to speak about how you can use Python to get the most out of crawling and indexing. So the first project that you can run is internal linking. So basically with Python, you can analyze the internal linking structures, as you can see in this plot on the right hand. And also you can detect internal linking opportunities. So here we have an example of an output that I got from running this script to detect internal linking opportunities for a cryptocurrency site. And it was a very big cryptocurrency site, and we were able to spot up to 50,000 internal linking opportunities. So here we have the keywords and the source URL and the target URL. And basically what we would do with this script is getting keywords from SEMrush or from Ahrefs. We would iterate over these keywords, and we would also scrape all the landing pages that are in this, that are ranking for some keywords, because we think that these are the most prominent ones. And then we get the source URL and the target URL for a sort of proposal of the terms or of the internal links that you could create in your site. And also another tool that I think that it's very interesting, even mainly if you are using WordPress, is this plugin, which is called Internal Links Manager. So for instance, if you combined this script with this plugin, you can place or you can input the keywords or the terms that where you would like to place an internal link and the target URLs. And basically what it will do is iterating over the database where the content of your WordPress site is, and then it will create these backlinks, internal links automatically. The second project that you can run with Python is page speed. As we saw, page speed and response times are quite important for crawl budget. So basically with Python, you can analyze in a bulk mode the URLs. With the page speed insights API, you can get up to 50 metrics so that you can evaluate what are your pitfalls or what are your main struggles. And you can also break it down by URL. And if you store this data in a database or in a Google spreadsheet, what you can do is checking on the page speed evolution. So for instance, if product makes a deployment to try to improve the page speed, you will be able to actually detect if this is something that is giving results, or it's something that is not performing as expected. Or for instance, if product is making another deployment which is not related to page speed but might affect the page speed, you can actually check if this has been something negative for the page speed of the site.
Yeah, actually, like on the Search Console, you know, page experience actually like tells us how many pages are good in like percentage on the Search Console, and sometimes we just focus on the speed of the homepage, you know, and that's actually like the mistake for SEOs, also like for developers. I don't know, but like in fact, like bulk analysis are also very important on this side, because we don't need to solve just the homepage. Okay, like homepage is like kind of rich website because like there are lots of elements on the homepage, but we need to solve like specific pages also to increase our page experience. So that's really good way to make a bulk analysis for in field of the page speed.
Yeah, exactly. But something that I would like to add is that Google Search Console is using real users' data.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
with PageSpeed, you can get data, lab data. So basically, for instance, your product or developers have made any deployment, you can check with the lab data instantaneously if it has made any impact on the page speed of the site. Whereas with Google Search Console, you might need to wait for a couple of days until you see some results, right?
Yeah, that's really true, because like after the deployment, like they can use, of course, like Chrome user experience site to check the user side of our page speed. But that's lab data is also important here, and it's important also to make a bulk analysis for the lab data to solve another problems for the page speed.
Exactly, because in this way you can standardize it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, exactly, someone might have some plugin, some Chrome extensions in the browser. Another one will have a different setup. So sometimes the results that the different people can get can be a little bit confusing.
But also, like, in this lab data, sometimes it's kind of how can I say it, like it shows us really bad experience, but maybe in the user side it's not so bad. So I think here lab and field data is both together is really important.
Yeah, exactly. Both of them are very important.
Exactly.
So third project is alerts. So mainly you can scrape your URLs in a regular basis and send emails or Slack alerts if any of them presents an indexation issue. It is unbelievable, I would say, that even if you try to set as many safeguards as possible, you do QI tests and you make sanity checks, there can still be some issues, like, for instance, developers putting a no index tag in the whole website, or blocking the site with robots.txt, or some of the main URLs returning a 404 response code. I think that most of us must have suffered something like this, and we know that unfortunately this is something that happens very often, even if you place all the safeguards and all the checks and tests that you could think of. So basically, if any of these issues happen, it's good to have this sort of alert so that you are notified about these issues and you can take action as soon as possible. So for 104 errors, so as we saw, this was something that was important when it comes to crawl budget, and mainly we can get the software 104 errors from Google Search Console. I think that the data from Google Search Console that comes from the coverage report and the crawling report are very interesting, and I think that it's good to examine it and to analyze it. And basically, unfortunately, this data is not available by using the API, but you can create a script with Selenium, which is a sort of library, Python library, that will enable you to automate your browser so that you can replicate a process like this. So you can see here in this video that I am going over all the problems and errors that are reported by Google Search Console, and I am exporting the Excel files. And after exporting all the Excel files, what can be done as well with Python is putting all of them together so that you can analyze them in an easier way. But of course, when it comes to crawling, we also need to have a look at log file, and we need to analyze them. And with Python, what we can do is parsing big log files with lots of records. We can structure this data and we can analyze it. And here I left the article from the SEO Garden, where it explains how you can use Python to parse the log files, and how you can create graphs to analyze your data by using Power BI. But well, in this case, they are using Power BI, but we could use any other visualization tool, like for instance, Data Studio, or the one that you feel comfortable the most. Finally, when it comes to duplicate and thin content, here I'm not going to say anything about Python, because I think that Screaming Frog, it's making it so easy. So basically, on Screaming Frog, you can get the duplicate content, and you can check also on the thin content by checking on the word count. You can get an idea of how thin your content is and the words that it has. It might not be Python, but I still think that it's good to put it forward and to present it. And as I said before, Python at the end of the day is just a tool. And programming just for the sake of programming can be good if you are practicing, but if there is a solution already in the market that is coping with the process that you would like to follow in order to find, for instance, in this case, duplicate and thin content, I would encourage you to use this solution that is already in the market. And well, that is it when it comes to Python projects. And finally, what I would like to do is giving a great shout out for all the SEO Pythonistas community which is amazing and are contributing and sharing so much knowledge. Here we have some of the most active SEO Pythonistas, but I know that there are many other people who are learning Python now because they have seen the value in it. And I am very sure that very soon we will have many other rising stars. And of course, when we are speaking about Python and SEO, we need to speak about Hamlet Batista. To me, he was a reference and he was a pioneer. And well, apart from all the big contribution that he made to the SEO Pythonistas community, well, apart because he created this community, I would also like to highlight that he was a humble and great person. And everything, whenever we're speaking about Python and SEO, we need to speak about Hamlet Batista and make it in honor of him.
Like he was someone who contributed like a lot in this industry. And
exactly.
Actually, like I learned a lot from him, and especially in terms of technical SEO. So just rest in peace, Hamlet.
Exactly. Yeah, he was a great person, and he did so much for our community. Well, I have no words to describe all the good that he made. And so that is it.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you a lot, Daniel. And that's kind of our promotion time. And we have an email newsletter specific to SEO that we publish every week. And a great newsletter where you can like learn about what we have discovered and the new developments in the world of SEO, etc. And you can subscribe here, and don't forget to subscribe to this newsletter. Yeah, another slide. Yeah, and so Daniel, thank you very, very much for this amazing Python SEO episode. I think it was like separate informative episode for beginners, and at sometimes like you have explained very well actually, like what we can do on the SEO side, like also for those like who have a good comment for Python language. That's actually like a very informative episode. And thank you for accepting my invite and joining and participating in this webinar.
Thank you so much for the invite. It has been a pleasure to share this presentation with you. And well, of course, if you happen to have any question or any comment, you can reach out to me on Twitter, and I will be pleased to answer.
Yeah. All right. So also we will write your Twitter address on our YouTube channel, like when we publish it. So thank you again, and don't forget you are out of this world. And so see you in the next episode, and take care.
Thank you. Ciao. Have a nice day.